the Learning Technology Analyst at Wisconsin School of Business.
And I'm an instructional designer and technology specialist at Wisconsin School of Business as well.
So today in this session, we're going to show you how we use Google Analytics inside Canvas to create these graphs here. Don't worry, we're going to talk about them later. But we're not going to talk about how we set up the Google Analytics or how we either download the data or analyze the data, but more about what kind of information we have been able to get from Google Analytics inside Canvas and what lessons we've learned, because we have definitely learned a lot.
So a little bit now about our background. As you have understood, we're from the Wisconsin School of Business, and we are in the midst of our transition from Moodle to Canvas and from D2L to Canvas. So about 90% of our users are transitioning from Moodle to Canvas, while only 10% from D2L. We started our transition during the at the beginning of fall semester, and we're trying to use this transition and the data that we're able to gather from Google Analytics to help us move away from some inefficiencies that we have discovered along the process of the migration, as well as help us to gain more consistency across courses in layout, design, as well as usability experience. Where are we? So, as I said before, we started our transition in the fall of 2016. We have about 200 unique curricula offered during the fall semester, and our target was to move about 25% of our users. Those 25% were basically innovators, some early adopters, some volunteers, some were forced to volunteer by someone, and as well as we decided that all new courses that had not used any, they were completely new, no new courses that were going to be taught directly in Canvas. So in the spring semester, we offer another about 200 unique curricula, and our target was met at 70%. In the summer, we offer 60 unique curricula, and our target for the summer, also met, was to move 40% of our courses. So today, our agenda is geared towards 3 audiences that we are targeting in using the Google, to help these 3 audiences with Google Analytics: students, instructor, and instructional designers. We hope to help the navigation experience for students, to offer a deeper understanding of how student learning occurs for instructors, and to help instructional designers to build better courses and assessments. So first, let me tell you a bit more about our process. So last year, we came at InstructureCon 2016, and we were back home with ideas that helped us materialize our vision that ended up being our template. Our template consisted in a homepage where you can see that there is a course description, instructor information, and course learning outcomes. Also, our template is actually module-driven. For us, a module-driven design made a lot of sense. Our instructors, as you remember, were moving from Moodle. So in Moodle, you have sections. So our instructors, whether they call those sections modules, units, week 1, topic X, they were already accustomed to the idea of having all of their material and all of their assessment in those sections. And also, our basic idea was also to limit the amount of numbers of buttons that in the left open enabled in the left navigation. And we went for 4 buttons: home, modules, announcements, and grades. And everything else basically that you can add into modules by clicking on the plus button was not enabled in the left navigation. So, of course, not everyone went on using the 4-button model, and not everybody went on using modules. So
at the end of fall semester, we also, for the first time, sent out navigation reports to instructors that were in Canvas. We wanted to utilize the opportunity of this Canvas transition, as well as the fact that we had Google Analytics for the first time, to inspire some questions. And this report is extremely content neutral, which means that it has nothing to do with the content of the course, the assignments, the readings. It is only about how the students in the specific course navigates the course. So each instructor gets their own report of their students and how they navigate the course. And we were hoping to get some feedback, but we didn't get any, but that's okay. So what was included in this report? First, we started with the starting page type. So this tells instructors what pages students start from. And very naturally, in this case, this example, 74% of the students start from home. But there are also the rest of the 26% who start from elsewhere, and a big part of that is files. So it's possible that instructor in this course left that file button enabled so that students can click on that file page and bookmark it, and next time they start from files. The next thing that we included was the exit page type. So this graph shows instructors exactly what students were doing before they leave the course. And we can see that 44% of the students in this case leave after they check the grades. And all the students care about the grades. And also 25% of the students go to modules and then they find what they're looking for and leave the course. And then there's some 16% who leave after they are on homepage for whatever reason. So this graph shows instructors what students were eventually doing with the course material. And coincidentally, we didn't pick this one, we just randomly chose one, but we can see that students really were utilizing the 4 buttons that we thought were important for them: home, modules, grades, and there's no announcements in this course, so they're not on that page. The next graph that we showed instructors was the number of clicks to finish an action on average for students in that course. And an action is defined as the following. If 2 page views were less than 10 minutes apart from each other, then they belong to the same action. But if the second page view is more than 10 minutes away from the first page view, then that second page view initiates a new action. Because we believe that if a student, after being inactive for more than 10 minutes and clicks on something else, they're initiating a new action. And we were hoping that it should take less than 10 clicks to finish something, to find something. And fortunately, all of our instructors had this number of clicks being less than 7. And the next thing that we showed our instructors was the action duration, so the average length of an action on that course website. And the reason that we didn't show this number as a gauge as the last graph, but just a number, is because it really depends on how the course is set up. If a course is very extensive, has a lot of assignments, readings, and quizzes, then seeing the 2.1 number, the instructor would go, my students really aren't engaging with my course material as much as I want them to be. I want them to be here longer because there's so much to do. But if a course is set up only as a file repository, not that it's recommended, but then 2 minutes is really long for a student to find something and download that file. So that is why we didn't want to pass judgment on the number, and the instructor should reflect on their course and this number to see if it makes sense. The last graph that we included is the clicks per day per student. So this shows instructors what days their students are the most active on their course website. So in this case, the students are the most active on Mondays and Wednesdays. It could be because that's when the course sessions are held, whether in class or online, and students are following along with the instructor on the course website, and that's why they're making those clicks. It could also be because that the assignments in this class are due on Mondays and Wednesdays at midnight, and that's when they're submitting their assignments. And it could be because of other various reasons. But we sent this to instructors to so that they can verify whether students are the most active on the courses as they expected, and if not, maybe they can make some changes.
One important thing for sure that we've seen from this data is that don't post anything on Saturdays, because that's the day your students are the least engaged with the course website.
Yeah, and they're just the overachievers, sorry. And aside from the report that we sent out to instructors, we also did our own pilot study on the button quantity, because we came home with the idea, but we never really had a way to back it up. So now that we have the Google Analytics data, we looked at it and we found out that on the left side, we have number of buttons on the x-axis and the page view variance on the y-axis. So the page view variance describes how differently the number of clicks that your students are making in your class. So for example, if I have a class of 10 students and you're clicking 100 times, I'm clicking it 110 times throughout the semester, and somebody else is clicking 90 times, that page view variance would be a lot lower than, say, with the same course, but you have 100 times clicks, I'm clicking 1,000 times, and somebody else clicking 20 times. So with the increase of number of buttons, we also see an increase of variance. And this could be because for courses with more buttons, it takes a student maybe 2 clicks to find something, but it takes another student 10 clicks to find something. Or it could be because some students are just engaged with the content a lot more, and they're logging in a lot more often, clicking a lot more items than some other students. And similarly, what we found with the number of buttons was that the types of pages that students click on are a lot more diverse when you have more than 4 buttons. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. If I have a lot of buttons enabled, say like I have syllabus, assignments, quizzes enabled, and to find an assignment, I can go from home to module to assignments, from home to assignment to assignment, home to syllabus to assignment, home to calendar to assignment, all those different ways that you can get to assignments with any combination of the buttons that eventually get you there. But if you only have 4 buttons, then really the only way you can get to your assignment is from home to modules to assignment. And of course, your students' navigation experience is going to be a lot more consistent. And knowing that that is what our instructors want, they want a similar learning experience for their students, and that includes the navigation experience. We're a lot more stricter in the spring semester.
So here comes spring semester. This is the exact same course that we showed you a few slides ago. It had 6 buttons in the fall semester, and in the spring semester, the instructor decided finally to abide by the 4 buttons rule, and so along, not necessarily in this course the slide that we're showing you, but we also made some layout adjustments. We decided that we were going to leverage more pages in order to deliver the bulk of the content, and also we launched like a little heavier into assessment, assignments and quizzes and everything, because we felt, the instructors felt that they were already comfortable with the new LMS.
At the end of spring semester, we sent out again another report, and that included the same graphs that I just showed you, so I'm not going to repeat those. But we also included this new graph that was inspired by Kevin Ree from USU, who did a great presentation last InstructureCon. So what does this graph tell you? It tells you exactly how your students navigate the course throughout the span of the semester. So we can see in the orange slice, in the innermost ring, that is where students start. Well, about 50% of students start. So, and that is home, very, very naturally. And then they go on to module, which is that gray slice over there. And then the next step is quizzes, which is the black slice. And then they finish the quiz. That is a very common path that students take in this course. And we also see that down here, the most inner rim is gray. That means that students start from modules. And it could be because that they bookmarked the module page, because the home page, again, only includes the course description and the contact information of the instructor. So the module page is where the most content is. And then some of them go to the quizzes and finish that. And we also see that here we have some students who just start straight from quizzes. And it could be because that the instructor from this course enabled the quiz button. Again, we didn't go back in to check because these reports were sent out automatically, and we didn't go back to see if it makes sense or what was really going on. It was more meant for the instructors. So the students could have bookmarked the quizzes page, or students could have bookmarked individual quizzes that they were responsible for, that they got from the module, so that they don't miss them. We don't really know how they get there first. And here's another example of a course where the instructor clearly worked with Antonella, because we can see that the majority of the students start from home. That's that slightly faint orange slice. And then they go to modules, and they go to pages. So this is obviously a course that is module-driven with a lot of pages that loads the content inside. Of course, there are other paths that students can take, but if you compare the two graphs together, you can see that on the right side, students in this course have a lot more of a consistent navigation experience.
So this is our background, and there was a bit of a summary of our transition process so far and how we use the Google Analytics to inform our decisions. And now we're going to go into the first time on our agenda, which is how we use data to improve navigation experience for students. So our first hypothesis was that student navigation experience improves with a 4-button template. So this is, remember that course that had so many more buttons in the fall than in the spring?
So here's a reminder of the spring course, a lot less buttons. And we compared the two courses because there was no content adjustment. They were the exact same curriculum, but the only thing different was the layout and the number of buttons on the left side. So what we found was that the variance of page views in the spring semester is a lot lower than in the fall semester, which means the students in the spring semester are clicking more similar number of clicks throughout the semester. And we also found that there is a slight decrease in the duplicated page views. So a page view is considered duplicated if it is visited more than once in one action. So for example, if I'm at home, and if I go to modules, and for some reason I go back to home again within that 10-minute threshold, then that time I click on home would be considered a duplicated page view. And we think that courses with more duplicated page views means that students in that course are more confused because they're going back and forth and maybe looking for things that they couldn't find. And it's a good thing that we see that there's a slight decrease in the duplicated page views.
Conversely, we also want to show you an example of a professor who decided to go the opposite direction of what we were suggesting. And so as you can see, this professor had actually fewer buttons in the fall than he had in the spring. Not only that, he also changed his homepage to be the module page.
And again, there is no content adjustment between the two courses other than the fact that he enabled more buttons and changed the homepage. So it's a great combination to compare because we know that the difference is coming from the fact that the design is different. So in this case, we see that the variance of the page views in the spring semester is a lot higher than that in the fall semester, which means that students are taking a lot wider range of clicks in the spring semester. We also see a slight increase in the duplicated page views. So what did we learn here is that we can verify that student navigation experience improves when there are fewer buttons in the course. And the reverse is true as well.
So our goal for sending out the reports was to inspire Instructure to think about their students and think about questions that they wanted to have answered, and basically for us to indeed deepen their understanding of how student learning occurs. And this time, we did get some faculty feedback. Some of them, this is just a small sample, some of them came back with precise questions, like for example, when and how do students use their provided materials, and what impact do these have on grades? Are there early indicators for students that are likely to perform well or poorly in the class? Are there assessments that I could build in that would allow us to identify these points? We have not yet figured out how to answer these questions, but we're working on it. But we're going to show you some more examples of questions that we were able to answer during the course of the last year.
So here we have an instructor who believes that executive MBA students are the most active at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Sorry, I forgot that part. So this is a course that is a blended course, and executive MBA students, they work full-time, and for 1 week they meet in class on Thursdays at 6 p.m., but for the next week they're off and they work online with their peers and the instructor. And that is why the instructor thinks that they should be the most available at 6 p.m. for Thursdays for the office hour. And that is when he held the office hour for the last semester. So we looked into the data to see when the students are indeed the most active, and we can see that they are very active from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And also they're very active on the course website at noon. So it could be because that is their lunchtime and they are taking that hour to learn and to study and do homework. And furthermore, we parsed out the data so that it is day by day. I'll only show you 2 examples here. So first, we have on Thursdays, and we can see that indeed students are really active at 6 p.m. But it could be because that they know that the office hour is at 6 p.m. on Thursdays, so they're logging in and doing whatever. And so we don't really know the cause and effect here. And it's kind of like a chicken and egg question. But if we look at the Friday graph, we can see that they're a lot more active at noon, and they're pretty much inactive afterwards. So with this information, the instructor can think about what time to set up his office hours for next semester, because it doesn't matter for him when he has these office hours, but he wants to accommodate the students. So why not catch the students when they're the most active, when they need the help the most, when they're doing homework, maybe on Friday at noon. So with maybe next semester, he'll have some office hours on Thursdays at 6 p.m., but some other office hours at noon. So what we learn here is that with data, we can provide detailed and accurate insights of students' engagement with course material instead of just thinking, I think my students should be the most active at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Our hypothesis 3 came directly from the conviction of a professor who thinks that undergraduate students prefer calendar-driven course design. So here's the example of a course website that we call Calendar Royale, in which, so this course is one core course taught by 8 different instructors, all using the same curriculum assessment, but each having their own course website. So in this case, the instructor, as you can see, did not abide by the 4-button rule and has a significant amount of buttons enabled in the left navigation, as well as a blank home page, and simultaneously she's using the calendar to drive her course.
And because this was such an unusual and interesting belief from the instructor, we looked at the data and we saw that less than 5% of the clicks from this course were actually on the calendar page. And only 11 students out of our 30 students ever clicked on the calendar page. So we immediately disproved her hypothesis. And if you look at the graph, we can see that a big chunk of the graph is on the home page. And again, you just saw that the home page is blank. So it's pretty much a wasted click for students. And what about the most clicked part of the course? It's the assignments. And if we look at the assignment page that, again, she has enabled, we can tell why students prefer this page, because you have all the assignments that you need right there, and their due dates and their points that they're worth. Students know exactly what they're responsible for. Why wouldn't they prefer this page? And of course, if they click on each individual assignments, that also counts towards the assignment. So we learned that we are able to confirm, or in this case, disprove instructors' opinions on how students navigate their course with data.
Mm-hmm. So the third item on our agenda is how we set out to use data to help instructional designer build better courses and assessments. And so our fourth hypothesis is to avoid student confusion, assignments should not be hyperlinked in pages. So this is an example of a course that is actually exactly the same curriculum as the Calendar Royale course, but with a different design. So as you can see, the instructor here has 4-button enabled, and he's using pages with hyperlinked content to deliver the bulk of the content, like key resources, activities, and things. And however, the assessment was positioned outside of the page, because my belief was, the students are going to get these, the immediate visual cue that is an assignment. On top of that, they're going to see right away how many points is worth and when is due. And so that would be the best way to deliver the assignment, because embedding it, hyperlinking it in a page would look exactly like another file or another resource.
So we thought this was the perfect combination of courses to compare, because they, again, have the same curriculum, but the only thing that was different was the design, the layout. But what we found was that 25% of the page views in this module-driven course was duplicated, and it's a lot higher than the 20% for the calendar-driven course. So we were baffled, because we thought we had it down. We thought it was good design, at least better than the calendar one. So we had to go back to look at the data and see what those duplicated page views were. And as it turned out, those duplicated page views were happening a lot on the module page. So if you think about it, a student is on the module, and he clicks on the weekly overview to see what he needs to do. And after seeing all the readings and files, whatever's linked in that page, he realizes that the assignment is not there, and he remembers that assignment he just saw was outside in the module. So he has to go back to the modules, thus creating the duplicated page views to be able to get to that assignment. So what we learned is that maybe this isn't the best way for the best design for our students. So we are able to confirm or disprove our instructional designer's opinion for what's best for students in this case.
Mm-hmm. So what's next? On our roadmap, we have in mind to conduct an A/B test in which we ask instructors to allow us to build modules where the first module has the assignment in the old-fashioned way, like outside of the overview page, and the next module would have the assignment hyperlinked inside of the content page. We've already started the conversation with several instructors whose students are from a diverse demographics, like undergraduate, executive MBA, but also from different disciplines, because we hope to get a bigger data set and a more diverse data set.
And as you saw, we have been getting individual requests, and we're looking forward to more of them. And one request is a dashboard where the instructors can see what content students have clicked on and when. So, for example, if a student goes to their office and says that your assignment is too hard, I can't finish it in time, they can go to the dashboard and say, you just opened it last night, this assignment has been open for 2 weeks, you've just been procrastinating. So that dashboard we're in the middle of building, and we want to provide to those who request it. And also we want to be able to identify students at risk earlier on in the semester. But also for students, we want to be able to provide them successful student navigation pattern. So we want to tell them what have the students in this course in the past done to make them successful, and maybe you can learn something from them.
So because we only hope to earn even less than twice, we're using data, and in particular Google Analytics, to prove or disprove anecdotal ideas and eliminate instructor and designer bias. As you see, we've used data to prove the validity of our four-button template to help instructor find the optimal time for office hour. We've compared data for the calendar-driven course design versus module-driven course design, and we've also used data to determine which one is the best assignment placement. We hope to, with data, we hope to make small incremental changes to finally bring us to arrive at a student-centric learning and navigation experience. So, well, this is about it. We hope that this presentation was helpful and that you go back home with at least a couple of ideas of things that you should absolutely not do. Any questions?
How do you set up Google Analytics? I thought Google Analytics only works on pages that are public.
The question was how we set up Google Analytics. I have no idea. I did not do that. Sorry. But maybe I'll be able to come back to you.
Yeah, I was going to kind of piggyback. Do you know, are you guys using the Google Analytics stuff for the tracking out of there? Or did you guys customize a lot of dimensions and variables and are you using those custom dimensions in order to do your tracking?
The only thing that we customized was the Canvas data, the Canvas ID, so that we know exactly how many students. We don't get the multi-device problem. And if we want, we can link to the SIS data and their grades.
Great, so you are pushing the user ID from Canvas into Google, you're not using the client ID.
Yeah, we're using the Canvas ID. Yep.
Did you make an intentional choice to use Google Analytics for this instead of Canvas data?
So the question was why we use Google Analytics data instead of Canvas data, and the answer is that we are a sub-account for the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so the campus is working very hard to make sure there's a secure way to share the data with us that is only related to School of Business students instead of the whole campus. So if you have any experience, if you know how to do that, we're all
right,
ears.
Yeah, we're all ears. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to see the screen.
Sorry. Yeah.
So your four buttons, were they home, modules, grades, and announcements?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the four buttons are home, modules, announcements, and grades.
Actually, I was even very strict even about the order. Home, modules, announcement, and grades.
And of course, in the screenshots, you can see the settings tab. It's because we're admins, but students don't see that.
And also the second question I have is, I wanted to clarify on the assignment placement.
Okay.
Were you saying it was better to provide a link to it, like in the overviews, or not better?
So the question was whether we said that the home assignments being outside of the pages were better or not, and that is why we're doing the A/B test, because we thought it was better to link the assignments outside the pages because students can see what they are, and instead of looking just like another reading, but now we see that they're also going back and forth a lot. So we want to think of a better way to do that.
Yeah. So to me, it's a matter of best practices. It was just, assignments should be visible. A student should know right away what is responsible for. Doesn't have to go and look for it. And I was really afraid of the fact that being hyperlinked, they would look exactly like, a reading that they had to do, or, an external file or an external link. So
to piggyback on that, I actually do both in my class. So I have it in the page that's for the module, but I also have it outside because I also use requirements so students can track what they have and haven't completed. That's the only place you can do it is in the modules.
yeah, and that's a great idea. However, she may object that having it in two places may give you duplicate pages, right? Because now the student may go back and forth to verify whether or not there is the same assignment
that they've just seen in the pages.
That's my concern. Now that I know better, so I don't know though That's why exactly we are going to try to do the A/B test.
The other thing I've done is I started moving a lot of my content into the assignment.
Oh.
So the page for the module is more about what we're covering that week, and then everything about the assignment, all of the hyperlinks to the research, anything else they need is in the assignment, not in the page.
Yeah, and we do the same thing actually.
Which helps a lot.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah. Any other questions?
Here's our contact info if you have any other questions, and I'll make sure to get back to you if you send me an email.
Yeah, feel free to email us if you have any additional questions. And thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks.